I got with me today, doctoral student, one of the coldest yoga instructors in the world, the owner of Summon Astra, uh, meditation practitioner, my universal appointed sister from a different mother, Guru Dree. Guru, how are you? Welcome to VRP.
It's a beautiful day. Thank you for
Beautiful
having me
day.
here.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate you for taking the time to pull up to talk about peace and meditation. Uh, I wanted to start and have this season focusing on it being okay to transform one's life. I know for me, I've gone through, it seems like two different lives. And to make sense of it all um, has been a lot and a lot to handle mentally, physically, and to settle in for me to settle in to a transformation. I've had to step outside the box and figure out how to calm my thinking down, calm my heart rate
Mhm.
down, calm my breathing down. And I found meditation. And within meditation, I found peace. Um, and so I truly am thankful that you are able to share your expertise, to pull up and share your expertise on meditation, because I'm still, a work in progress, still trying to figure out other different uh, meditation techniques. And again, I appreciate you for pulling up and blessing the platform with your presence. Before we get started, I noticed on Facebook that you're working on. Actually, let's put a pin there real quick. I get a little bit ahead of myself, so forgive me. I get excited. But tell us a little bit about Summon Astra. What exactly is Summon Astra, and what do you help people with within that field, within that
Yeah,
industry?
so yeah, absolutely. So Summon Aster was a project that I started, and it's now the name of my business. But a project that I started a couple of years ago, and essentially the wording itself means that in my eyes, we all have a little bit of the stars, the celestial bodies within us. Um, it's not to look to something that is above us to be with us, but that we all have something that is of this celestial body within us. And, in whatever methodology or type of spirituality or religion you look at, every single storyline has this aspect of there is this essence of we are all connected. We all have this unity that can be achieved if we don't see it all at once. But um, so the wording itself is summon the star within you. Summon Aster. Aster is a derivative of a Greek word. My dad was um, Greek Turkish, so I'm like half Greek, half Turkish. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, summon Aster, summon the star within you.
Nice. So I met a guru, I think it was 2019 going into 2020, and it was during the uh, George Floyd incident. And you invited me to one of your events. It was the Aware and Awake, which was an awesome event. I love to see the idea that there was a leader in the community of Fort Collins and yourself willing to bring the community together for healing. And it was a great experience. Um, we had mixed group of people there, and you allow some of the the black participants to share our stories to people that were interested in hearing our plight and our experience. And we watched the show The 13, and I think that was so profound and insightful to a lot of non-black participants perspective. Everyone took something from it. The best part of that was the healing. What was that we did at the end of that healing? Because it was a great thing. I almost found myself into a trance. I actually felt at ease at the end of that. Being in a mostly white community, there were a little bit of fear throughout that whole time I lived there. But for that period of us healing together, I felt a sense of ease um, at the end of that. So, what was that type of uh, technique or that healing that we did? If you want to talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that aware and awake experience.
Yeah. So let's rewind a little bit because I don't know
Yeah.
that everybody or all of your listeners know what 13th is. And it's a documentary that was produced by Netflix.
Right.
But 13th is talking about the 13th Amendment, and
Mhm.
the film itself goes broadly into the Black experience in America, specifically with Black Americans, and how the Constitution, the Constitution of the jail system
Mhm.
is built basically the reverse of success,
Right.
and was based from the plight of slavery itself. So I think it's really important to look into that whole story, um, and study from some of the. I mean, this film itself shows a lot of the facts.
Right.
There's a lot of facts. So when you look at all those facts, the meditation part of this event from Aware Awake Collective, which was built, in that time where we were all experiencing not only COVID, um, but also all of this racial uproar that
Right.
took us into not only a state of, you know, disillusionment that we, might not all be of the same blood, which the truth is we are, in
Right.
fact. But it took us out of our current perspective. So
Mm.
it's important to utilize tools like meditation.
Yes.
And in that experience, we had the ample opportunity to talk about not only what was going on in the film, the facts uh, of how slavery turned into the jail system,
Yeah.
but also to incorporate how, you know, utilizing Resma Menakem's methodology, which is essentially integrative health. Integrative health is talking about how we use our mind and our matter to create constitution of peace, to allow for that. You hear about peace, finding peace within. You don't find that peace within, you connect with that peace. So talking
Mm.
from that perspective of utilizing somatic healing. The soma is a Greek word as well, the Greek derivative of the body, the human body. So, talking from that perspective, you are settling all of that uproar within the body to be able to find that or connect with that peace within. So the
Yes.
meditations that we utilized, we were using drums,
Mhm.
and drums in every culture and every indigenous, every native culture, we use drum to be able to talk with the soma. The heart itself is a drum, and we utilize the drum to be able to talk to the cells in the body. And yes, that is can feel trance like. It can feel like you're um, kind of slide and slip in through space, because I
Yeah.
feel that many times when we can go into meditation, um, that is where we are. We're in this space in between the physical reality and the reality that our soul, our our ultimately our senses can feel. And the meditation itself was just integrating what we experienced, what the facts, these hard truth facts,
Mm.
into our bodies, and being able to understand that these experiences are just that. They are simply experiences.
Right.
And no matter what other people's experiences are, we have the ability to find that those facts can help us bring up courage, bring up strength, or reconnect to those same aspects of life.
Yes. And so, to me, it's a deep level of acceptance that's happening when we get into meditation, and particularly for that experience that we had together, we as a community, and participants um, within that setting, we accepted where we were at. We accepted the history, um, and we basically grounded through that meditation at the end. And there's really levels to this. And I talked to Darren a couple weeks ago about the levels of moving up in society. And at the end of the conversation that I got with him, we I concluded that there's truly levels to this, to life. Um, we hear it, from my hood a lot. There's levels to this shit, and there really is. And I think ascending, a good part of the ascending to level, meditation kind of brings that home. Meditation kind of sets the mind to prepare it for what it's gone through, or excuse me, to process what it's gone through and prepare for the next level. And so that meditation kind of, I would research and did meditation off and on, and I stumbled upon peace by accident a lot throughout my life. That was one experience of stumbling across peace on by accident. But we have the power to hone into peace, through meditation. And I can look back at my life and many examples in that Aware and Awake Collective. That's what it was called, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing that I can look back on, and I'll be able to look back on for the rest of my life, is, hey, that worked then. Being in a mostly white community, having so many different fears, um, that helped me get through that. I wasn't as consistent after that, but that's the goal for me now, is to learn as much as I can, and try to be consistent in meditation when I need to, because I think, again, living life starting from the bottom. It's one thing to collect as many tangibles as I want, but those are things I can't take with me. But if I'm able to create as many great experience, and enjoy those experiences and accept them for what they were, meditate on them, allow God to filter through those experiences for me, um, that lasts longer in my memory bank than something tangible that can be taken. I really feel like sometimes we get lost in gaining the tangibles and it being a staple of our life as accomplishment, when mostly, to me, accomplishing and cherishing those experiences is the greatest accomplishment there is. But I'm glad I had that and shared that experience with you. And while we're on the topic of meditation, I noticed that for me, through that experience and here recently, whenever I meditate, it's almost like a means of recharging. Um, that's my experience, but you have a lot of knowledge in meditation. Is meditation good for recharging? I know a lot of us, we take a day off, go vacation, and we come back from that and then we go straight to work. But are we truly recharging?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We had a little conversation a while ago, and I believe that a lot of people are maybe unaware of what meditation is. And
Mhm.
um, absolutely, it is about not only refilling or up leveling that juice bar, like you would on your mobile device. It's also about taking a moment to connect with who you really are.
Mhm.
Because a lot of times in life, in our inward and outward experience, we kind of forget what our soul mission was, what we were put onto this earth to do, like what our essence is. That's the truth of what our experience in life is to live in our essence, to live in our life. our
Mm,
essence of life, our soul's path is our essence. And so it's not only a recharge, but it's also a reframe because
mm,
outward experiences was what we call Maya, Maya, also a beautiful artist. But Maya is everything outward of life. But when we go inward, we don't have that Maya. When you close your eyes before you go to bed, that's meditation. If you go into the shower, you take a moment to close your eyes, that's meditation. Every single moment can be a point of meditation. And it's about connecting to that or disconnecting from that disconnect, connecting to yourself. Because a lot of times when we go through life, we're kind of just going through the motions. We're
yes,
kind of just going through kind of what we feel like we need to go through, but really there's no need. The only need we have is to live what we are meant to live.
that's right.
And that's the essence of our life. So no matter what's around you, you can always tap into that essence any moment,
Mm,
anytime.
that's right. That's that's one thing that growing up, and some of the struggles that my family and I had to deal with. Um, the American bottom is real. I'll say that, and that information, and meditation, and it's almost. I'm not. I don't want to say it hasn't made it to my hood, um, but I don't know if it's cool enough. It wasn't cool enough when I was younger. I would have never thought of meditating through having my power cut off. But in the essence, when there were times where we didn't have power, uh, I stumbled upon peace accidentally, and so it left
Mm.
that mark, of something in my memory that, I can be familiar with whenever I ran into it as an adult. I'm like, "Hey, I remember this silence, this sense of not thinking
Mm.
about what's next and what we're gonna do tomorrow." It forced us to be within the now at those times of having no power, but when the power comes on, it's just back to normal.
Mm.
And there's a level of survival mode in our thinking, and at that time when I was younger, and there, we see a lot of the suffering, or the within the survival mode, a form of suffering, of not having the basic needs and whatnot. But I can't help but to go to thinking like, if I had meditation back then, if I
Mm.
had, um, someone that's come into the Boys and Girls Club to talk to us like about meditation, um, how would have things turned out? But things have turned out perfectly, and so I catch myself thinking and reflecting on the impact meditation could have on kids, particularly, um, applying it to my own living experience. And I remember a couple times, when I was volunteering at the Culture Enrichment Center. Shout out to Culture Enrichment Center in Fort Collins.
Mhm.
You'll help the kids through identifying with meditation. And this is something I can't wait to have you come back on, and we talk a little bit more about. But as we work with our youth to, work on controlling their outbursts. Hey, there you go. Yes, ma'am. As we work on teaching our kids to better control their outbursts and their behavior and whatnot, um, I think we forget here in Western culture, or we don't even think about, teaching them meditation. And so I'm just curious, while we're on again on this topic of meditation, and I remembering back to the times where you come to the CEC to support the kids through meditation. Um, do you do you think that, um, there's a specific age that the kids should be before we educate them on meditation?
Mm. No, absolutely
Yeah.
not. I feel that the younger the better
Mm,
is the truth of it. And the truth of it is, I experienced some things in some ways, in mirrored ways that you have
mhm,
um because I didn't have a choice I went to school in India. I was in school and I lived in India for 6 years of my adolescence, and I didn't have a choice to be separated from my family. Of course, I wanted to be in LA. I'm from LA, but of course, I wanted to be there. But we lived, in hard times in India. It was
Mhm.
it was it was it was difficult. It was difficult to live out there away from our families, and
You
I'm
there, Guru?
back here. Hopefully,
Okay,
yep. Hopefully
I got you.
that's all set. Yeah, it was difficult uh, to live out there, but I'm also grateful for it because from a young age, I was taught meditation. That's a big part of this lifestyle that I grew up with, um, and which is part of why I like to share it with the younger generation as well.
Yeah.
Um, I also believe that many of our cultures from Africa, from native of this land,
Mhm.
wherever we are, have a form of meditation involved in our cultures.
Yeah.
Um, and for many people, especially African Americans, it's stripped away from you. It's been
Mhm.
stripped away. And that is a part of why we can't live in that essence as easily in our minds. We don't understand how to connect with that. Um, and so so everyone has this difficulty, there's going to be some challenge in life, no matter where you are, no matter what you were raised with. But it's about
Absolutely.
finding what makes life easier, what makes life more comfortable, um, and what is bringing you balance. And in my mind, that's always going to be within you. That balance
Mm.
is always going to be with you because you can't find it somewhere else. You can't find it outside of yourself. There's there's no one who can tell you what to do with you. That's that's generally what I've noticed about life is when you seek, when you look, when you try to find, that's when you feel lost. But when you
Yeah.
find what's the best about you, what's the truest about you, and what brings you the most joy within you, that's when we that's when we live. That's when we truly
Mhm.
live.
That's right.
And yeah, I find that the younger you are, it might be the easier you are to tap into that. But it's also about the willingness. It
Right.
could be no matter what age. It's about what is your desire to tap into that, and what is your and how does that energy of not only desire, but what you desire also desires you. That's when you find that um, true energy of not only tapping into meditation, tapping into yourself, but also into your own potency, like your own power,
Yeah.
um, and holding that power. It's about presenting it and everything in you.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's a good point you made as far as when you said like owning the power. I think in Western culture, we a lot of times give that power away to what society thinks about us, to what the cool trend is. You know what I mean? And so instead of kind of holding tight to, and this is me personally, this is some of the things that I've experienced. Instead of holding tight to my power and the course as far as the journey that I'm on, sometimes I give away my power in the sense that I'm assuming the thought of what others think of me. And so within that assumption of the thought, what people think of me, maybe I should change my behavior or how I think or how I talk or how I walk or how I dress. And to me, that's kind of giving away that power of I walk this way because this is how I've been created to walk, or I dress this way because I've learned, and these are the only clothes that I've worn my whole life. And
Mm,
while change is good, adapting is good, but I don't think it's ever a good idea to do it because society says so. But to me, that's kind of the form of giving away power too.
mm,
Uh, and I think kind of that robs us of the piece of who we are. It robs us of a piece of who we've decided to grow into becoming. And it's hard to find your peace whenever that's gone, um, because you're always catching up to society and wanting to make sure that you're fitting in and you're good in the circle. You're accepted.
mm,
You know, it's unfortunate, and this is only my opinion, that you have to, in today's culture, you have to talk, dress, or walk a certain way to be considered black or white. Or, and this is me personally, and my experience personally as a black man, as ADOS. You know, I've been told I don't talk black. I've been told I talk white, which I've never fully understood that. English and choosing to say the words in a different, what I believe the appropriate way, doesn't have a color. Um, but for me to change up is giving away my power. For me to talk one more uh, ADOS dialect, I guess, is me being black. But I will refuse to give away my power into adjusting according to what society thinks how I should talk to fit in. And so I think honestly that gives away peace. And you mentioned earlier, like, peace is within. Would Could we find peace outside? And does does our group, get our um, ethnicity group, or our culture, is it their responsibility to give us peace
mm.
or no?
That's a great question because right away you said, "Can we find peace outside of?" I say, "Yeah," but that's in nature. That's not in the, that's not in the
Yeah.
hood. That's not where we were raised. That's not where we, it's not where we're from, unless you're from the woods. But really,
Yeah.
that's where peace is in
Oh yeah.
nature, walking on trails that haven't been paved and walking in what is truly a part of our essence. Yes, that's where peace is. Yeah, you can
Mhm.
tap into your own peace when you have peace around you.
Yeah,
That's,
absolutely.
I
What's
mean,
around
yes,
you.
and there's always some fear factor. If you
Mhm.
haven't been out there, you haven't been outside, you haven't explored, there's always going to be some fear factor, or maybe some fear of disconnecting from what you're connected to in the real world, in your world, whatever that looks like. But yeah, that's in my mind, that's where peace can be found in nature.
Yeah.
Nature allows for peace to happen when when you have the ability to hunt your own food, when you have the ability to plant your own food. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
even in the cities, if you make that a priority, you make that a choice, you can find peace in gardening. You can find peace, you can allow for that peace
Facts.
anytime you're in those points of nature, natural living.
Yeah.
But all of that has been removed purposefully. It has been taken away for corporate living, for
Yeah.
consumerism, for
Right.
everything that allows for the human population to be removed from that essence. So sometimes you kind of have to fight for that.
That's right.
You have to um, you have to allow for that priority to become first. Um, yeah, and at times it's easier to just tap into your own peace first,
Mhm.
before you find those exterior sources of peace, because maybe you don't have the resources yet. But when you find the resources, when you find they say knowledge is power, but it's not only knowledge, it's wisdom of yourself. It's not just knowledge combined with wisdom.
That's
Wisdom
right.
comes from your ancestors, wisdom
That's
comes
right.
from your bloodline, wisdom comes from where your roots are. And
And so so
in,
essentially that peace is in us then when you say it in that manner.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's
We
passed
all have
on and
we all have it. Absolutely.
yeah.
You have
Huh,
that peace
interesting.
within you.
Yeah.
Each human does. And because we are all blood, bones, skin, DNA is all the same, no matter what. I mean, in my mind, skin color is an egoic sense of
Mhm.
reality.
Right.
It's about it. That's why it becomes a fight. That's why people have a problem with skin color. It's an
Mhm.
egoic sense. I mean, that's the way
Right.
I see it. It's like, and yes, we all have different customs. We all have different cultures. We all have different essence. But the reality is, we all have the same sense of what is what is ego and what is power. What is truly you. And yeah, you have that peace within you. I have that peace within me. A dog has that peace within them.
Mm.
A bunny has that peace within them. Each being of life has that peace because even though we may not have the same DNA, we all have skin, flesh, bones. That is life. That
That's
is
right.
what brings us into this earthly existence. If we didn't have skin, flesh, bones, then we wouldn't be on earth.
That's right.
Where, I mean, you're just a spirit, you're just, um, in the ground, whatever, whatever.
Right.
If
You're
you
not
didn't have,
here.
if you didn't have that, right, you wouldn't have
Yeah.
this experience. But the brain matter is flesh. We all have that. The heart is flesh. We all have that.
Right.
So if we look at things in that sense, it's like, I mean, that's what all science, like we've talked about. I'm going back to school at almost 35 years old. It's like taking all these classes that a lot of people have taken in younger years. I like to incorporate all of these aspects that allow me to understand not only that there is fact and there is fiction in every part of our lives.
Right.
The fact comes from knowing that we all have atoms, and every single thing on this earth is made of atoms.
Right.
We are all made from the same types of molecules.
Mhm.
So it allows for me to delve into that and
Connect.
like exactly. And
Somewhat like
when
string
you
theory almost.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you can look at things from different perspectives, that's always been my thing. Like I was afraid of heights for a long time. I like to share this story because it's cool to
Child, me
just see
too.
things. Yeah. it was like big, like I would go on a Ferris wheel and I'd be like shaking, it'd be terrible. But my dad got sick. And my dad got sick. I'm like, oh, he's really sick. And I'm like, he ended up passing. So I'm like, I have to do something. I have to do something to change the way that I look at things, my perspective. When you look at things from a different perspective, it allows for you to change in a big way. So for me,
Right.
that thing was heading face on with my fears. I'm going to do the first thing that I've always been the most ashamed to be fearful of, because I've looked at roller coasters. I've been like, I want to go onto that roller coaster. Like, why can't I go onto that? I'm scared. But I go skydiving, and I've been 4 times now.
Oh.
So
Oh, wow.
because for me, facing my fear head on was doing the most, you know, crazy thing in a lot of people's eyes. To me, that was falling from a plane, knowing that I'd be safe, knowing that I'd be fine. And also, I'd dream about flying when I was a kid. I dream about flying away. I had that feeling the first time I went
Mm.
skydiving. I had that feeling when I had that free fall. When I was at 14,000 feet and I'm like shaking the same way I did on the Ferris wheel, but I'm jumping out of a plane. You're strapped to somebody, when you first do it, you strap to somebody. You're not going to, there's no going back. You're not going to go back into the plane. You're just going to jump
Right.
out. So you
And
jump out and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Not only do you truly have a different perspective, not only do you have a visual perspective that you can't do unless you're skydiving, or I mean, even if you're in a plane, you have to be in the type of plane that you're skydiving in. You're
yeah,
not going to get that same perspective. So to me, it's like really showing that not really like what you are most fearful of. If you go head into it, face forward, that's when you learn the most. And
right.
that's where you learn the most.
Oh yeah,
And that's where you are able to tap into that essence in the most potent way.
right. I completely agree with you there. There's it, you know, the peace inside. There's peace everywhere, and I think in so many cases we don't know what peace looks like. I didn't know what peace looks like. I only stumbled upon peace through stillness, again, like losing power. And as I got older, when my kids and family are gone doing things, running errands, and there's times where everyone was home and we all kind of experienced this thick atmosphere of stillness. Um, and there's peace in that. And when you mention, like, even in our fears, when we address those fears head on, it broadens the perspective, it taps into our essence. And while we're jumping out of a plane, in my case, for the last couple of years, I've been looking at death. And um, and I'm gonna be completely honest, as of here recently, I've just recently accepted it. Shout out to my brother, Byron, the Love Coach Jones. We're gonna talk about we're gonna get into that more further discussion about death. But I was looking at it for 3 years, and until I, was able to take those peaceful moments, um, after crying and worrying and doing all that, I was able to take times from my memories of just like running through football tunnels. When you mentioned jumping out of an airplane, I'm like, okay, everybody's got to die, but when I die, it's gonna be like a feeling of perhaps jumping out of an airplane. I know for a fact the feeling of running out of a tunnel, about to go rip someone's head off. It's just like, "Ah, let's go." You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
you using peace to accept these fears, and it's just like when you are able to identify peace, it can remove the barriers that are in place when fear comes in, and
Hmm.
you're able to accept it for what it is. And for me, as a mystical Christian mystic, I lean heavy on God and Jesus, the story of Jesus, and Scripture, to kind of help, you know, firm the foundation of the acceptance of we're all going to die. You know, it could be tomorrow, it can be here in a second, but the experience of it all was awesome. And I'm going to be running into death, into this next life, like I'm running out of a football tunnel or jumping out of an airplane and skydive. It's just like, or a roller coaster, you're able to shape it and fall in love with it, put a smile on your face. And it's just, whenever it comes up, drinking too much, oh shit, I feel like I'm about to die. But it's like, oh well, So but
Right.
yeah, peace is powerful, man. And I love that example you shared, how it connects us through the fear, and it ties us to the essence. It's just like it's truly in us, and in my thinking to the culture aspect of it, is it the cultures, and I mean, like, um, ethnicity and nation, is it their responsibility to provide peace? I i thought of that because living in Fort Collins, and I love Fort Collins, aka Vanilla Valley.
Mhm.
There's no there is no secret to how white and I'm gonna just say it, white and beautiful Fort Collins is. However,
Mhm.
being a black man in that space, being a reparations advocate, there was a lot of fear, you know, when you put in context history and what happens to black advocates. A lot of fear set in. Once we moved from Colorado back to Oklahoma, where there's more of a mix, more of a historical acceptance and ground for ADOSness, American descendant of slavery, American blackness. Um, I felt more peace. I felt more peaceful.
Mm,
And so my thinking was, is it the culture's response? Is it the nation or my people's responsibility to help me with peace? And maybe it was just the thinking, and
mm,
it all filters back to inside. Because even if I were before I left, I didn't have peace, but when I came back, I had a new mindset. um, I was ready to see things different, my perspective open, um, and peace became more important. And so,
mm,
um, yeah, even you helped me see this a little bit better, and I appreciate that. But regardless if the culture is behind you or not, like pieces is within, man. Even through the
mm,
fears. Oh, that's beautiful. I could talk on that for days, but there's some things I want to get to because when we talk about meditation or we think of meditation, we're thinking of like sitting down on the ground. Me, I love chant.
mm,
I love filtering in that way and sending my energy to the points of hurt or pain or whatever,
mm,
and getting intense chant.
mm,
But others will see just sitting down posture, folded legs. But I'm no expert in this. I can only assume there's different types of meditation. So my
mm.
question is are there different styles and types of meditation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like there's different styles of communicating, some people look into the way you communicate with your body the best. So, movement meditation may be
Mm,
the best for you. Like you said, chanting, using your voice,
yeah.
even chanting words of affirmation can
Right.
be meditative. Going back to your roots or utilizing the tools of other cultures, of other sciences, really, like yoga can be looked at as a science. The yoga based from either Egypt or India can be looked at as a science, depending on, where you look at where that yoga is rooted. But in my opinion, any way you look at it, if you say the word yoga, you are looking at you and God.
Mm,
You, union. That's all it is. It's about connecting with, I believe, my methodology of belief is that each of us have a piece of God within us. We all have a
that's right.
molecule of God,
That's right.
which is why we are here. So no matter what you believe, you still have that understanding that you can still bring spirit into body. And so, yeah, there's different ways of meditating. And like I said, just utilizing time and space that you have in your daily activities right before you go to bed, taking a moment to not think.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
moment of meditation. Taking time in your shower, that's a moment of meditation. But yeah, sound, um, yeah, chanting, even listening to other people chant. You're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about death, utilizing the spirit. There's many entities that
Right.
have been recorded to really root into that fiery spirit that death brings to the human experience.
Mhm.
And some may say that once you die, there's no more human experience. But then
Mm,
why is the Bible still here? Then
right. Yeah.
why do
Yeah.
you look to words of God? They're still present. They're
Right.
still on this earth. So you can look to these entities without fearing them, in my ideology, you can look to these entities. Say, for instance, you're saying Om. Om is the universal
Frequency.
language
Yeah, yeah,
frequency that
yeah.
is said to have born this earth. Om, you say Om to allow for that sound current to vibrate through your head. Also,
Mm,
another one is ONG, ong. Then you're utilizing the back palate of the
mhm,
tongue,
mhm,
ong. Another one is looking to, say, we go back to that death, Kali, Kali. And there's also many in African spirit and African language. There's many different of these. We can call them deities, we can call them, whatever, but what they are is a representation of death on earth.
mhm,
And my name Gnosis means knowledge. I was born Guru Ratan, which means the teacher's jewel, the teacher's emerald. But my name Gnosis means knowledge through experience.
mm,
So, but there's also this, and I found out kind of almost later, but Gnostic way of looking at things. And the Greeks invented this almost, I mean, some people can look at it as a religion, is what I've noticed, but I don't really I see it as a methodology of living. And I'm very new to understanding what it's all about, but Gnostic teachings are of um, essentially some of the basics are that basically you live so that you will die. So you live in your best way so that
right,
you are going to die, you knowing that you're going to die. And if you look at things like that, it's like you can live fully, live most authentically.
right.
And also going back to like that, not fearing death and bringing
Yeah.
into like, well, I can drink as much as I want. We've talked about this, but of course we all have that experience. It's like,
Right,
I can drink. Well, you can also do things that are going to help your body thrive.
right, right, absolutely,
You
yeah,
can also do things that are going to challenge you in extraordinary ways, because we all know drinking doesn't do that. We
yeah.
all know that
Right, right.
drinking doesn't challenge you. It just kind of settles you. It just kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
brings you into this
Mm,
contentment, the state of contentment. Um, Drinking alcohol, I mean, drinking water, if you're doing that, but like drinking alcohol, I have to stop saying drinking as a
yeah,
form of, because you can drink anything. But anyway, it's like without fear, you look into things straight on. And yeah, you can utilize all types of communication to your internal universe.
mm,
And that's what meditation is to me. You can look, you can call on, it doesn't even have to be an external source like Kali, to ask for power, for strength, for freedom of what the pain that death may bring to a human experience, like grief, like even a death within your own life, like like what Jesus,
right,
his experience was.
right,
Even a death and a rebirth period, which we all may have in our lives, a
right,
death and a rebirth period, calling on all of these energies, or just the energy of yourself,
mm,
just tapping into your own heartbeat, tapping into, I mean, Buddhist and Taoist meditation is about releasing thoughts from your mind, and that's not always available for you.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not when we have anxiety, when we have racing
right,
thoughts because of our experiences, because of our, it's not always available. You're in that survival mode. having thoughts of nothing isn't available. So focusing your attention on one thing, maybe visually,
Mhm.
like a flame, like a fire,
Right.
or drawing something that is patterned, that can be a form of meditation. Coloring, there's these meditation coloring books that can give you a lot of peace
Mhm.
just by focusing your attention onto one thing instead of not trying. You don't have to feel like you're trying. it's
Right,
just
right,
that you've it's just that you've allowed. It's anytime you're trying, you're not doing.
right.
So it's about doing. It's about allowing for that doing, to
Yeah,
me.
right. And so I would think the trying would come early if it's new. Um,
Yeah.
and it things do, and I feel like it ultimately should transition into being, and doing, like you said. Uh, you know that saying, and we just heard it earlier at church, "Fake it till you make it."
Hmm.
And sometimes, I feel like we got to get there. We start there, in the trying phase, um, to form those habits. But I absolutely agree with you. I think, meditation. Obviously, we're going there to, recharge and be closer to peace when things are difficult. And I find myself, even just meditating when things are okay. Uh, but ultimately, there's the advanced, from what I've researched. There are the advanced meditations. Some of us Christians, we call it prayer. Tapping in and meditating, connecting to Christ, God, and some of our brothers and sisters will tap into ancestors. And I know my tribal brothers and sisters, my brothers and sisters that um, of African descent and connection, myself included. I don't so much tap into the ancestors, on that level, but they lean heavy on that, and
Mm.
there's peace in it, and there's no judgments there. But when we get into this ego argument within religion and society, someone or some group will find a problem with how people connect to their peace, through meditation. And so I'm glad you're able to touch on the different methods. Some of those I, didn't even realize, were types of meditation. Um, how important is posture throughout meditation? I know the chakras are important to hit within meditation. I know, being around you, and even now, like, you have spot on posture. Shout out to my brother Jamal Skinner. That's one thing I've always admired about that brother. His posture is on point.
Mm.
But how important is that? That's the one thing I've been working on. But how important is that posture throughout the meditation?
Yeah. I mean, throughout meditation, if you are doing a more practicing, not doing, but practicing a more
Here we go.
um, Buddhist or Tantra or um, seated type of meditation,
Mm.
posturing is very important.
Yeah.
And what that means is, sitting in a way that your spine is in the best alignment. That's that's essentially all we're looking at. And with that, you're allowed to allow the energies to move more easily and more freely.
Mhm.
Um, and in the way that I was raised with Kundalini, and Kundalini is um, the frequency, the energy that we all have that's almost trapped at the
Mhm.
base of our spine.
Yeah.
Um, and that energy, um, it's in the sacrum. I mean, that's where our mothers birthed us and how we're here. And that sacrum also connects to the navel point. So that navel point was connected to your mama. And
Mm.
that is where all of that energy kind of is stuck until
Interesting.
it's ready and tapped into enough to move. And when it moves up the spine to the base of the brain and in through the brain. And when you are allowed to feel that energy, it fuels you in such a way that you are allowed to step into these higher states of consciousness, which is what we see as Christ consciousness, a state of love being, a
Mhm.
being that is of pure love.
Right.
And um, and in whatever belief you have, living in that pure, higher love life gives you more access to higher states of consciousness in this reality where you're living in the three-dimensional world. You know, we can feel, we can touch, we can see, but some may argue that there's also four dimensions,
Mhm.
five dimensions, six dimensions. And what that allows for, to be able to see those things, is not only the physical body, but also the energies that are around us and that are through us and that also live through us, um, and and connects to those energies. And why would you want to connect to those energies? Well, so that you can live in that love energy. You can live in that energy of seeing. Like the way I grew up, if you can't see God in all, you can't see God at all. If you can't,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
if you can't, if you aren't one, you know, to think that we are all the same in some way, shape, or form, then that's just a moment of thought. You know, it's a moment of, you know, that's what brought us into periods of civil disruption
Right. Yeah.
in every state of history and in every state of present history. You know, anytime someone throws a racial slur at you, you know that they can't really see you for you,
Right.
you know.
That's right.
And that's every human who experiences that is just, they're not ready to tap in, and that's
Mhm.
okay. But
Yeah,
if you are,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
can just step away and you're like, well, hey, you know, I know that's not me, and I know you can't call me that, you know. You're like, you can, I mean, you can call me that, but it's not
Right.
going to do you any good
Right.
except maybe get your ass beat, you know.
Right,
Like
right,
it's,
right, right. Yeah,
you know,
yeah. Depending on how I'm
maybe it
feeling
won't
that
be
day. You're
me,
right.
but someone's gonna, you know. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That's right.
it's gonna come back to you. But I'm, you know, I can be somebody who can stand up for me, and I can stand up for what I stand in, which is love, which
That's right.
is which is that energy of love. So yeah, I mean, there's posturing absolutely helps with connecting to those higher energies, but there's so many types of meditation that, you know, if it's just about the mind for you right now, because it's about cooling that mind, go with that. It's not about fighting too, you know, thinking about too much about, oh, I need to work on posture. You know, going through movement is essential for every human
Mhm.
because we have bodies. So
That's right.
you want to keep that fluidity, that motion going as much as possible, as best as possible, which is why there's a whole, like I said, some people call it a science, a whole science of yoga, movement, physical therapy, you know, all these things that can be looked at as sciences because it's about moving, flowing with that energy. The blood of our bodies is water. You know, if we look at elements, the blood of our bodies is water. And so we have to allow for that water to keep moving. We have to allow for that earth, the bones, to be able to move without hesitation, you know. And if you look into the chakras, it's just about the energy within yourself, within the heart. Is the heart closed off when you
Mm.
sit down like this, or is the heart open? is your are you allowing for that heart space to stay open? If your head is bent over, are you blocking what your truth is? Your truth, you speak from your throat. So are you blocking what your truth is? Are you blocking that? Are you hiding? Uh, and same in your navel point. If you're tight in your lower back and in your you have pain in your lower back, it might be something like your navel you need to work on, or your sacrum you need to work on, to just and that's what all those chakras are connected to, is really just aligning in the body. It's about alignment in the body, which allows for alignment in the mind. So I kind of
Mm.
like
No, that's
expand a little
awesome.
bit, but I hope
No,
that makes
thank
sense
you.
to you listening.
That's very informative, I think. And I want to go back too, because I didn't get a chance to really tell, my intentions for having discussion with you, Guru. And my intentions are just kind of make sense of that transformational season that some of us are in. And I think through a planned transformation, or maybe even a transformation that came on as a spiritual enlightenment, um, through a higher power. This is your season. We might get bogged down on wanting to move so much into this new self, which the ego kind of brings that anxiety and that pressure to want to, hey, okay, this is where I've fell short at. Here's some of the corrections I can make. So let's go do it. And
Mm,
reality, this is all going to take time, and sometimes we get so excited. I know for me personally, I get excited to want to level up, and it brings on a lot of anxiety and stress. And so I wanted to, bring up the importance from someone that's experienced in meditation, someone who's familiar with peace. I wanted to have you on to help us cope with some of the struggles we might experience through transformation. And you've been very informative up to this point. Everything you've said, especially uh, how the energy flows. Um, it's really a complicated system that we're working with here, but it's not. It is, but it's not. It's ironic to even hear me say that, but we are a complicated, species, and there's a lot going on that we aren't fully aware of. There's a lot that can help heal us, natural things that we can do that can help heal us. Um, there are techniques in meditation, like you said, that can help get us to another level in our growth. And you sharing, I mean, you've opened my eyes a lot more to ways that I can incorporate relieving stress. I think that's what a lot of what I'm dealing with personally, is that stress and that anxiety of wanting more. And after spending some time of reflecting and meditating, I realized that my ego has attached itself to my thinking. um, and I've embraced the idea of thinking that I'm a thinker. In reality, I'm just a person who thinks. And so with embracing that I'm a thinker, my ego is like, hey, yeah, let's think every chance we get. Since you're a thinker, let's do it. And
mm,
I've been able to here lately step back and look at how my ego has just been driving me nuts for the last 3 years, man. And even prior to that, when I was battling my drug addiction, my ego has just been driving me through the ringer, and my lack of awareness to the ego. I think the ego is important. Is There's some
mm,
important aspects to it, and it's okay to embrace it. But that
mhm,
lack of awareness, man, it'll control our thinking. And spending time looking at the ego, I feel like I've had a chance to embrace that. But as I'm peeling back more layers through this season of transformation, I've ran into the shadow self. This And if you got kids in the room, take them out of the room, because I'm gonna go ahead and code switch a little bit. But
mhm,
there's this piece of, I'm about to knock this motherfucker out. You know what I mean?
mhm,
There's this piece in, man, that motherfucker ain't shit. You know what I mean? Just wanting a dog and be a dog. Um,
Mhm.
where's that? What is the shadow? What is that shadow? What
Mm.
is it? And I've done a little bit of research, and I've really um I want to say Carl Jung, he mentioned that the shadow is separate from the ego, which there it's an aspect of the ego, but it's like the darker self. Can we talk a little bit about the shadow?
Yeah. So there's two different methodologies of looking at the shadow, and one is Carl Jung looking at the
Yeah.
psychology of the shadow
Right.
self. Um, and the shadow is the darkest and um, I guess most unhealed parts of us that not
Mhm.
only are passed on from our parents, our we can even go as far as saying our ancestors,
Right.
grandparents, whatever you want to say, but whatever is available to you to look at those. But say you were brought up in an abusive home, you have that shadow of either being an abuser or the abused, or both of those things can be a part of your shadow. And so you can look at it in that psychology aspect, or you can look at it in the energetic aspect, like without bringing anybody else into the picture. You're just looking at you, and you have this light energy, this person that glows as a human, has potency in the world, has a beautiful story to tell. And you also have these things that are challenging to you. You also have these things that, maybe you find like, yeah, you do get angry at things that you feel like you shouldn't get. You want a dog, you feel like you get angry at things that you shouldn't get angry at, or you become like something like I've dealt with, like I notice I become reactive at times. And it's about like looking at that reaction. Where does that reaction come from? If I see somebody or somebody is in my life and they're a really angry person, this is something I'm talking on experience. They're holding a lot of anger from whatever their experience was, whatever their shadow was. If I have that person in my life that I have to challenge in some way, or I'll have them removed from my life, or they remove themselves from my life, whatever that looks like. But if you don't have that choice, they're in your life, and you look at this person in a way that you can either react or be non-reactive. At some point, being non-reactive might not be good for your safety,
Right. Right.
but being reactive also brings you into that shadow part, into that shadow aspect.
So I don't mean to cut you off. So we
Yeah.
can take on others' shadows as well?
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Anybody that we have in our lives, I look at in this way. You see the message of karma, and karma is this cycle
Mhm.
of not only what you do also has an equal and opposite reaction, whatever, everything in this universe has energy, but it's also that our souls themselves, the energetic bodies of us, have these ties of with us and with other energies.
Within those
So,
atoms.
exactly.
Okay.
So, you can have a relationship that is in your life simply to be karmic. And that
Mm.
means that you are here to look at you from another perspective. And if you don't like pass the test, if you don't like try to heal yourself, even when it feels like, damn, like I really want to, like I
Right.
really fight, I really want to fight this aspect of this human in me
Right.
because it's real uncomfortable for me. Whatever that looks like, it's real uncomfortable for me, and I don't want to be here. I don't want to sit with this. If you don't pass that, then it's going to keep coming back to you. And yes, that person can start to act like a mirror to you. They can start
Mm.
to you can start to take on some of their karmic energies, and that's what we call like karmic soul ties.
Wow.
Those ties that happen are when essentially we're meant to learn deeper, we're meant to learn more in depth of what our experience is. So yeah, you can, yeah, you you want to be able to stand for yourself, stand your ground. You want to be able to be that warrior in every aspect of life, but without causing harm, and without and doing your best to not take on other people's karma. That
Mm,
means non-reactive, you
yeah.
know?
Right.
That means um not mirroring another person's experience. Yes, and sometimes that's the biggest challenge.
Right.
Um and when all anger management, whatever, I learning in this psychology class that I'm just finishing up this semester. I'm glad it's almost over. But they say, like, if you're angry, you walk away. That's what you hear a lot. If you're angry, just walk away. um but in that sense of anger is also here to for you to learn something.
Right.
You don't just feel anger for no reason. You don't feel like you have to, but it's about learning where that anger comes from. Like learning where, if that anger comes from fear of actually learning from yourself, if
Mm,
that anger comes from physical fear, like you're actually fearing your life,
right.
maybe even, or you've experienced fear in your life before. um, but even so, there's a way to settle that,
Mm,
and there's a way to find why it comes up for you.
yeah.
It's a I mean, in any way you can look at it as a blessing. You can look at that, and I believe that every moment that you live, if you are living in gratitude for your experience, that's where the healing comes from. Because gratitude is a form of love. If you're thankful, if I say, I'm thank you for having this conversation with me, and I truly mean it,
Hmm.
because I understand that you're trying to understand, and I'm trying to understand what you're trying to understand.
Right.
If I truly mean that, and I do, I'm living in love.
That's
I'm
right.
living in that form of love. So love and gratitude are the highest forms of learning in this experience.
And so that's how we address that shadow self.
Yeah. So in the shadow, you are going to be challenged
Yeah.
with stepping away from that
Hmm.
love body and that feeling of graciousness, of gratitude. You're going to be challenged in that. But the more you move towards that, and the more you move towards that peace, I believe, again, that peace is within us all. We
Right.
all have a sense of peace, and we can tap into that peace. Or we can also, it's uh, the message that I've shared with you, and I do share, is that pain itself is a vice. And it's not that, I mean, because there's many people on this earth who are in this sense of, um, like, I can't step away from pain if everything
Mm, yeah.
hurts,
Yeah. That's
or
true.
I drink to drink the
Right.
pain away.
Yeah.
But the pain itself, you can even find peace in.
Yeah.
So the more you step towards peace,
Hmm.
the further away you are from that vice.
Wow. Yeah.
So you are able to move closer to the light and integrate that shadow,
Yeah.
moving in, accepting that you have this pain. You have every single device on this earth available to you,
Right.
even if it's in your own body. Even if your knees are in pain every day, you're like, damn, like can't move, can't walk. If you say can't, then you're still taken for that vice
Yeah, in that shadow. Yep.
and living in that shadow.
Yep.
And
Wow.
so you, the more you live in that state of gratitude, of love, and step towards that peace, the more you live in that light. And yeah, you can live in the shadow for as long as you want. You can face that shadow for as long as you want. But the best way to live is to integrate that shadow, understand where your shadow parts are. If that's anger, if that's discomfort, if that's dis-ease, those can all be shadows. Those
Yeah.
can all be shadow aspects of you. Um, yeah, and psychology you can go into the depths of that, um, but in the energetic world, it's all about living in the light so that you can integrate those aspects of shadow and live with gratitude and love.
Beautiful. In the Christian world, um, we kind of we talk in terms of spiritual warfare, and throughout my this conscientious transformational journey and process, um, I've come to the conclusion that sometimes that spiritual warfare is from within. It's also from different situations and people, like you mentioned. Um, that you said it's the karmatic
Karmic,
um,
yeah. Karmic
karmic
relationships. Yeah.
relationships. Yeah, um, it's interesting. The more that I look into my own shadow, again, if you got kids in the room, go ahead and have them leave. But the light that I've shined on my shadow here recently is through humor, and I've called it the nigga shadow. Like, nigga quit playing, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
so I've given it a name now, and sometimes I look at it and laugh at it and just let it be. But I think it might be something I'm going to be working on my whole life, and I'm okay with that. Is in traffic, I might have an outburst. I pray the Lord heals me from the outburst. I don't have very many outbursts, but the shadow might come out. With the middle finger and some choice words, and I might feel a little violent at times. But I think with the tools of meditation and understanding peace, it kind of integrates, like you said, through love and acceptance and grace. I think to deny that self, that part of self and me and who I am, will be an ongoing battle, is what I've realized. Rather to embrace it and accept it, illuminate it, and almost like you're training it to do what the higher self wants it to do.
mm,
I think it's a beautiful thing, and we've been going over spiritual warfare in our men's Bible study, and I couldn't help but to think, as I've been, dissecting and peeling back layers, like, man, I'm having not only an outward spiritual battle in some cases, but man, inwardly too. There's a
mm,
spiritual warfare going on because the old self doesn't want to change. The old self
mm,
wants the outburst and the feeling of like you about to rip a mofo's head off, and
mm,
but we all have it, man. Sometimes it gets the best of us. Sometimes we might act upon it and find ourselves in prison. Sometimes some of us might act upon it and find ourselves dead, and in compromised situations. But that love and what's the other word you said? Love and gratitude
mm,
is it makes sense, man, to show that part of yourself, love and gratitude, and accept it and shine light on it and say, hey, man, we're going to try to do better next time. I don't see a
mm.
problem with that. But all
Yeah.
this is like happening subconsciously. And I've noticed that you recently have been promoting your subconscious healing. Why don't you
Mm.
talk a little bit about the subconscious and your subconscious healing and what all goes into that?
Yeah. So, I mean, we all have different states of consciousness.
Right.
When we go to sleep, we're, essentially either between the subconscious and the unconscious. Unconscious is when we're either dead or asleep, we're not aware. Um, and uh, the conscious, of course, is when we're living, when we're alive, when our eyes are open. Um, but the subconscious is what controls, I mean, actually 95% of our thoughts are actually from our subconscious
Mm.
mind. And that can be accumulated over a lifetime. And most of the time, those thoughts are from our conscious reality, which is usually from the ages of 7 to 14, unless some really traumatizing things happened before or after that in our lives. But between those ages of 7 to 14 is when our minds are developing and when the subconscious mind begins to grow. So, in the subconscious mind is where we can heal the most in the conscious reality. That's where we can learn the most about ourselves. Um, we can also heal the most of ourselves. Um, and it's like something that has to be done. And a lot of people um, kind of are opposed to the word hypnosis, but it is essentially what the same type of thing that a lot of people think of hypnosis. Oh, I'm going to be told to do things I don't want to do. But that's not the way it is. The way that subconscious healing works is that you're in this certain state of brainwave. And we look at it from a science perspective again. It's called the theta brainwave. And it's where the patterns are the most even, and where the mind can go the most deep into those experiences that started from those earlier ages. Um, so, from the subconscious, we can heal everything from pain in the body to limiting beliefs like
Mm.
I'm not good enough, I'm less than, um, I wish I was better. You know, all these things that, yeah, that hold us back in life. Um, and it's not pseudoscience. It's true. It's true in its effect.
Mm.
And it, you know, there's been many tests that have shown, multiple studies that have been shown that working from the subconscious mind can actually heal um, all of these physical ailments that we may have, all of these, also all of these beliefs that we may have, because a lot of physical ailments actually come from beliefs themselves. So, say I'm going to give an example from my own body. Like my my mom would always say, "Oh, I have the Garcia knees." The Garcia knees are these, in her mind, they're these um, knees that there's no way you are, you know, going to have a healthy life because, you know, have a pain-free life, because my grandma and my grandma's mom had pain in their knees and there's no way to go back from there. Okay, so I know that just from my understanding as a child. I, you know, well, maybe I have Garcia knees too, but the fact is, um, I know that my knees are healthy. You know, I can take some deep squats, you know, like I know my knees are healthy and I know they're going to stay that way because I'm working from that understanding, that point of understanding, whether we know it or not. You know, in this case, I knew it. You know, I knew that this was something, okay, I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to heal through this, or like, I want to heal from this because I don't want to have whatever
Right.
these Garcia knees are,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to have these, you know, this I want to have a healthy body, and that was something that I'm challenging myself for. That is my challenge in life. That is my mo. That's, I want to heal myself so that I can help heal the world. That's, you know, that's my life. And it's, you know, might be sound crazy, you know, for some people, heal the world, but
Right.
heal my community, heal, you
That's
know,
right.
heal the people around me, heal
That's
people
right.
who help others heal themselves is really the key. So when you go into the subconscious mind, all these things that are stored in there in our knowing or unknowing mind, we have the ability to heal ourselves. So if you go into this theta brainwave, you're able to tap into those known or unknown experiences, find the root cause, and learn how to release them through listening, through, like, again, it's a type of meditation, through um, listening to a recording that I can make, or even listening to your own voice through words that we make together. And what that does is it allows for, and if you listen to those words, that recording, for a multiple set of days, it just allows for that healing to occur, and a lot of ailments just disappear. I mean, a lot of those limiting beliefs just, it's like they were never there. And it's not magic, it's truth. Like, it's what we have learned in our experience, um, doesn't define us. And everything that we think we know can be challenged.
Right. Right.
And that's about the mind being expanded. That's what expansion of consciousness is. It's about understanding the depths of the human experience.
Yeah. Wow.
uh,
That kind of reminds me of the story when Jesus was in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights. Like, and the negative energy, some will call Satan or Lucifer, was maybe that was his subconscious, like him
mm,
going to battle with those negative thoughts, and
mm,
you know what I mean? And him
yeah,
moving them out the way and building himself back up.
yeah.
Wow, man, that's crazy to think
I
about.
love that perspective. I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful to bring into, that perspective, because, yeah, actually, I mean, you look at the biblical sense of what 40 days and 40 nights
Yeah.
is, and 40 days, if you do something, if you haven't been one to, say, I don't know, brush your teeth twice a day, if you brush your teeth twice a day or more for 40
Oh
days,
man.
you're going to make that a habit.
Right.
That's going to become a habit, that,
Right.
and it can be something as little as that, or it can be something really deep, like looking into the shadow self, really
Right.
looking into what takes you away from your essence,
Right.
what brings up that anger. If you listen to your own voice, say, address why that anger comes up, or um, why that voice inside you is not letting you put out the things that you want to put out into the world. If you listen to that voice, and you listen to your own voice, and you've addressed all of those things in your non-physical reality, in your dream state, in your theta state, if you've addressed all those things, and then you begin to slowly change your ways, you begin to slowly create these habits, and take away what you thought you knew, and begin to
Mm,
know something more,
that's right.
that just creates a new you. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh man,
just
that's
just like
refreshing to
that.
think about.
It's any habit can be created in 40 days. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Just put
when
in that work, huh?
that's it.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at, I think, in some cases. Like, there's so many times where I've heard adults say, we've got to focus on the next generation. And I've heard it so much, I've questioned, like, well, what about the adults now? Why can't we, offer, this type of support, whether it be educating 30, 35-year-old person about meditation, or 30 or 35-year-old person the importance of um, shadow work, and meditation, and um, subconscious work, uh, and I'm coming to the conclusion that there might be too much work. And I'm curious to what you think. Like, the older you get, do you feel like the harder it is and too much work, and so it's just like, screw it, I've been this way my whole life, I'm gonna keep it on? Or
Hmm.
do you
You
age
know,
out of working on self? basically.
No, again, it's all about the intention.
Yeah.
It's about like what you see yourself as, and it's about what you want to see yourself as.
Right. Yeah.
Do you look to somebody and you say, I wish I could be like that person, but I'm never going to be like that person?
Mm.
Or do you say, I'm going to be like that person, but in my own, in my own
Oh,
way, in
way.
my own,
Yeah.
on my own feet, in my own
Right.
heart. I'm going to do my own thing and be up there with that person that I put so high. You
Right.
know, it's about the intention and it's about the projection. It's about like what you not only strive to be, but also how much of that work you want to put in, how
That's
much
right.
how much of that practice you actually commit yourself to having in this world, in this life, in this experience. How much of that practice? And because we are a multitude of what we do, we are what we practice. That's that's also the message I like to. We are what we practice over a period of time. So
Mm.
even if you go to the gym, 5 times a week, um, or every day, you go to the gym and you just do something light at the gym. You're working your muscles, but you don't want to go too hard because you don't really know. So you just do the basics. You just do, like your push ups, your sit ups. Maybe you lift a few weights. If you do those things and then I don't know, you have pizza a few days in a row and your body just like, I don't feel like it, so you fall off that practice for a few weeks. Your muscles are still going to grow. Your body's still going to begin to, you know, it's like going to take that pizza, it's going to turn into wherever you've been working towards. And then if you go back into that rhythm, you're still practicing for those
Mm.
muscles to grow. You
Yeah.
are what you practice. So even if you take a few days off, it's not going to do much to you. It's not going to, you take a few weeks off, it's not going to do much to you because you've already had that practice. You've already ingrained yourself in, oh, exercise really makes me feel good, or I really like the energy of going to the gym. And what that does for me is better than not going to the gym. So I'm going to work at, and it's all about that mind frame. It's all about, I'm going to work towards being that version of myself. And so whatever the amount of time is, you are that. So if you just start it for a few months, it's not going to, and then you drop off, it's not going to do much. But if you do that 5 day or every day, and I don't believe that you need to go to the gym every day. Some people do,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be, but activity does, in my mind. And so like you look into that and it's just about practice over a period of time. It's just about what you focus your attention on over a period of time. And if that is a practice of gaining knowledge about bettering yourself, if that is a practice of applying knowledge of bettering yourself, if that is a practice of living as a better version of yourself, whatever that looks like to you, that's who you are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. It's all about the bounce back because there's going to
Mm,
be some days where you might not be able to make it to the gym, and there might be some days where you might not be able to meditate. There might not be some days to where you feel positive enough to, or excuse me, feel energetic enough to even be positive. Like we're going
mhm,
to have some dark days, but man, what's the bounce back like, right? That's
mhm,
essentially where we're at, man. And um man, listen, we've come to our closing point, Guru.
mhm.
I enjoyed it. I can't wait for part two. Part two
Yeah,
again. I want to try to
me
focus
too.
in on um, inspiring the next gen on meditation and what they can get
Absolutely.
from it, and then maybe even touch on the ego. I never thought about the ego until I became an adult. Didn't run into knowledge of ego until I became an adult. But I don't see the bad idea of our youth having an idea what it is, so that whenever they get grounded enough as adults, they'll be familiar with it. And so maybe
Mm,
we can even talk about how we can incorporate, a little bit of education on the ego.
mm,
But I've had a great experience, and I've learned so much. I can't wait to get the ball rolling, and even stay consistent on some of the meditation that I've been doing. I think that's the
mm,
key that I'm looking for me personally, and for our listeners. If there's anyone out there that are have been thinking about meditation, I think this is confirmation. Jump back in, like Guru said, it's the bounce back. You start somewhere, it's manifested. You start, it's going to manifest itself, even weeks later. So it's about the bounce back. Meditation yields great results. Peace, it speaks for itself. So there's a lot to gain from this episode. There's a lot to gain from peace and meditation. But
mm.
before we go, Guru, how can we find you? How can the listeners find you?
Yeah, so my website is summonaster.com. That's SUMMONASTER.com. Um, I'm also on Instagram at Gnosis888. That's GNO dot SIS. Gnosis888. Um, on my website, you can book a session with me. It's either light work or what we call gray work, which is integration of that shadow self and the light. Both of those are available to book with me. And then also as well as subconscious healing. Um, and that is a full session that is at least 2 hours. The gray work and light work is under an hour. But the gray work and light work session is essentially so what it, in how I like to explain it is it's an intuitive healing session, not in which I'm healing you, but in that I'm helping you to heal through that shadow or with the light, either one. And then with the subconscious healing, like I said, it is about going into that theta brainwave state, which allows for us together to find, the topic in question, the source, the root of that issue, and help to remove it and change and make new beliefs going forward. Um, so it's at least a 2 hour session, sometimes a little bit longer. And we're in that brainwave, in that theta state for at least about an hour and a half, going in kind of like deducting. It's like I will be asking you questions in this state. You will be somewhat aware. There's always an awareness there. There's no, disillusionment, and there's no funny
Unconscious
business.
completely.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah,
no
yeah.
funny business. I'm here to help,
That's right.
and that's why I share these services. So
Beautiful.
anyhow, that's where you can find me and what we can do together. Um, and yeah, I always enjoy conversation. So you can
Yeah.
hit me up on Instagram too.
Awesome. And you're in Fort Collins, Colorado. Do your
Mhm.
sessions, do you offer them remotely as well?
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely. Yep.
Awesome. Listen, listeners, I tapped in with Guru 2019. We did a session, a group session, and like I said earlier, walked away with a sense of uh, a timestamp of peace. Um, I damn near was in a trance, but there was healing there, and so I personally co-sign Guru. I think the community of Fort Collins will definitely co-sign Guru and the work that she's done. So if you're looking to gain more information and knowledge on meditation, or if you need, the advice to how to take it to another level, if this doesn't do justice, reach out to my universal appointed sister, Guru, man. I appreciate you, Guru. Thanks for coming to VRP.
Thank you so much. I
Yes,
appreciate
ma'am.
your time, Avery.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Have a
All right, bye.
beautiful night.
You too.